Elian, the elf squad, I feel like we can call it that. The elf squad has departed for Tantervale. They've been gone for about a day. You know that they're going to be back probably in less than a week. Tantervale's not far from Kirkwall.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, Leander has been preparing to go talk to Magister Ronin. And his idea of preparation is packing like a really ominous-looking rucksack.
Oh, God.
He's got some stuff in there that, like, why does he need a meat hook to talk to him?
Jesus.
Why is that a thing that he needs? He also has a staff now. I have completely re-rolled Leander as a mage. All his stats are the same, but he now has a list of spells and a mana pool that's appropriate for his level. Which is very strange because he's got a really high dex. He's like an unbelievably high amount of dex for a mage. He's just a mage. He's going to be extremely hard to hit, I guess.
Fair.
And he has told you that he wants to do it on this particular night. And that particular night has arrived. He is downstairs in the living room packing up his shit. Where are you? Are you with him, or are you sort of putting off going downstairs?
Oh, God, because I feel like it depends on when I saw the meat hook. Oh, God. No, I'm probably nearby-ish. I did say I would support him. I'm not thrilled about some of the things going into that bag, but...
He has his back to you. He's sort of packing up some stuff in a bag, and from behind you, Dorian enters. He has his staff slung over his back, and he says, "So it's just about time, isn't it, to you?"
I guess so.
What's the worst that could possibly happen?
Why would you ask that, Dorian? You know.
Listen, it's going to be a shit show either way. I feel like we might as well feel like we've tempted fate. It might as well be deliberate.
Oh, God. Are we crazy to be doing this?
If there's anyone in the world who has earned bloody vengeance, it's Leander, right?
Right.
And it's not like murder is some strange new concept in Tevinter.
I know.
People will just assume that it's part of the horrible, stupid politics, and they will be right, but...
You won't get in trouble for helping with this, will you? I mean, you're also a magister.
You think magisters get in trouble for killing each other? How do you think the politics in this country work?
Right. I forgot about the parties and the bullshit. Right.
Yeah.
We're usually a little bit more subtle about it, you know.
Well, that's why you do it wrong in Orlais. Honestly, if you're going to backstab each other, you might as well do it in public. I don't understand Ole's fascination with doing things behind closed doors as though murder's a big secret that no one knows about.
Mystery's half the fun, but, you know.
If you say so. Leander turns around. He swings a bag over his back. He also has his staff stuck into it, so like the bag is holding up his staff. He says, "Okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this."
Okay, I guess we are too.
He says, "Dorian, you know, you don't have to come. I know it could be dicey politically." And Dorian makes a dismissive hand gesture. Says, "Nonsense. I've been meaning to kill this bastard for years now."
I mean, he did set him on fire, I heard, so, you know.
Oh, a little bit. And Leander's like, "You set him on fire?" It's like, "Oh, yeah, back when I was meeting with the Archon, it was fine." It's like, and he like puts a hand over his fist, like, "Dorian, sweet." Dorian says, "What can I say? You're a good friend, it was worth it." Leander looks very touched. And he says, "All right, well, let's go." And he heads out. Did you want to bring anyone else? Like, unfortunately, you're only... Well, no, that's not true. You've got 2 warriors. One of them is in Tantervale. Fenris is in Tantervale, but if you wanted to, like, in case you're worried about shit actually going down, you could have lobbied to bring Talgan with you. Would Elian have done that? So you could have, like, a full party, 2 mages, a rogue, and a warrior?
I mean, yeah, it's not a bad idea to have your head of security with you.
I mean, Talgan, he's down for it. Like, he's like, "Yeah, sure, I love killing magisters."
Yeah, I mean, I think Elian would have been on the, like, yes, there's discretion in smaller numbers, but also, if something goes wrong, and let's just be honest here.
Something's probably going to go down, like...
Would rather not have all of the eggs in just one basket.
In that case, Talgan is waiting for you. He does not have a little bag full of meat hooks.
Thank God.
He just has his axe. That's all he needs to smash faces. He just recently came back from Orzammar. And he has not talked to anyone about what he saw there. In fact, like, He was very quiet for the first, day after arriving back from Orzammar. But everyone's been very busy and he doesn't want to bother anyone. And also it's extremely personal. But he seems affable enough. He's like, let's go. And he heads out the door. So Demetrius Ronin lives in, I don't want to say the Beverly Hills area of Mien'harel, but that's kind of the area that he lives in. It's the bougie quarter where all of the buildings have been restored really well. And the flowers, rather than being on climbing vines that are destroying the structure of the wall, are deliberately planted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Dorian does not live in that area. He lives on the opposite side of town. So it's a bit of a walk. Although so far that you probably have to take a carriage. And Leander is sort of gazing contemplatively out the window of the carriage for most of the ride. And I'm interested to know if you want to strike up any conversation on the way there.
I mean, I feel like Elian's probably tried to strike up conversations over the past couple of days and just not really known what more to say at this point.
Well, Talion asks, so this guy got any family? Wife, kids, anything like that? And Dorian says, yes, he does. They do not live in Mien'harel, however. They live in Carinus. They are amicably separated. It's a common condition for married couples in Tevinter.
Anything's amicable here?
Well, separations are, yes. Most marriages in Tevinter are arranged. It's not about love. It's actually not even really about money. It's about magic. A magister will be paired off with whatever partner has a strong magical bloodline. Never mind if they loathe each other. That's not the point.
I was being sarcastic, but yeah.
And Talcon says, well, I guess it's good that they won't be in the way.
Very. I don't like collateral damage.
Leander says she despises him. The kids despise him too. They only visit on holidays, and even then they skip sometimes. You do roll into the fancy side of town, and the driver, this is the personal Pavis, he is on staff, so he knows to be discreet. And as Dorian hops out of the carriage, he winks at the servants yeah, mum's the word, huh? And the servant's oh yeah, I never saw anything. And then he opens a book to wait for them to be done with the murder.
God.
The Ronin estate is impressive to the point where it's he's compensating for something. It's 5 stories, which is objectively too much space for one man living alone. Even if you do have a host of servants, that's too much space. The walls are glittering white marble, which must have been imported because there's no marble quarries anywhere in Tevinter. The front-facing windows are all stained glass. The doors have this really intricate gilded inlay. It's a lot.
Elian likes opulence, but this is just too much.
Leander says we should sneak in through the back, the servants' entrance. I remember where it is. And he heads around the back.
I'll follow your lead.
By your leave, Leander, Dorian says, and you all head around the back. He guides you straight around. There's this very opulent, there's a reflecting pool in the back garden. Which, again, you don't need a reflecting pool. But he easily opens the door and goes into this crowded kitchen. And only a couple people look up because, it's the servants' entrance. People go in and out all the time. But as soon as the people that glanced up really see who it is, there's this pall that falls over the kitchen. And there's a loud clatter as one of these slaves drops this huge cast iron pot onto the floor and races up to him. He says, Leander? And Leander looks a little startled. He says, Mia, and she immediately hugs him. She says, he told us you were dead. How are you here? What happened? He told you I was dead? And she says, yes, and she sort of flinches, after your parents died. He told us that it was a sickness that took all of you. And Leander sort of laughs hoarsely. He says, my parents did not die from sickness. And neither did I. He made me tranquil. She says, what? And he kept me in his personal employ. And she says, all that time, that's where you were? Dorian turns to you, Elian, and he says, a slave of personal employ, he explains, is one that never leaves a bedroom.
Yeah, Elian's pretty green. He knew, but also having it confirmed again is awful.
Mia says, but you must have been only 13. When did you escape? He says, just a couple of years ago. The other slaves are all starting to, notice, and they're kind of forming, a wide circle around him. And the more that Leander is explaining what happened to him, the angrier they get. One of the staff chefs says, I can't believe it. Your mother was the kindest person who ever walked these halls. She never said a word against Ronin. And he killed her? And she says, and her husband, and, one of the other slaves in the back says, I can't believe he would do this. I hate him. I hate it here. He's a tyrant and a bully. We only ever survive his beatings by begging him to heal us afterward with his magic.
God.
Is Elian's opinion changing on the whole maybe Leander shouldn't kill him thing?
So, Elian was never of the, he shouldn't die, because he is objectively a terrible fucking person, but also,
yeah.
Torture and death is a little different.
Well, who knows what the meat hooks are for? It could be for anything, Elian.
No, he fully believes that he should die. He's just concerned about methods that might be used, or, collateral damage.
Leander is not concerned about that so much. He says, do you know where he is right now? I'd like to talk to him. And they, the slaves look at each other, trying to remember. It's well, he's already taken dinner. I'm not entirely sure. And one of the slaves in the back says, usually after dinner, he goes to the chapel. He spends a few hours in prayer. And Leander sort of laughs yes, I've forgotten. He's very penitent, isn't he? Leander says, I'm going to go talk to him. And he strides out of the kitchen, and the slaves look at each other and then follow immediately. They're not going to miss this.
Cool. Great. I'm following.
Dorian does too. He seems he was always sort of in camp. Yeah, kill him. He never had any compunctions about but vengeance isn't good for the soul. He was definitely in the camp. Yeah, no, you should definitely kill him, Leander. As nastily as you want to. But even he was sort of put off by this. Since he was 13, really? That's wow, that's a lot.
Extremely.
Leander's 25.
Yeah,
he only escaped a couple years ago.
Yeah, we don't like this at all.
Leander is leading this group of you up. And yep, the inside is just about as opulent as you expected it to be. Lots of gleaming marble floors, lots of gilded thread curtains, that kind of thing. If it can be gilded, it is gilded.
Oh.
And the chapel, it's not incredibly common in Tevinter, because Tevinter isn't Orlais is definitely more religious than Tevinter is. You can't spit in Orlais without hitting some sort of chantry. But that said, Tevinter is devout in its own way, obviously to, a different sect of the chantry. But people that are extremely religious are actually few and far between. And Dorian, as he's walking up beside you, says he's been angling to take over as Black Divine.
Why am I not surprised?
Wants to make a big show of piety. Hopes that'll get his foot in the door to be the next appointed.
Well, not if we have anything to say about it, huh?
There's a cloud of slaves following you as you make your way up, and there's a big set of double doors that block off the chapel from the rest of the building. And he doesn't feel like subtlety right now. He's capable of subtlety, but Leander is not feeling subtle. So he just sort of pushes very hard, and these huge iron doors gilded with gold just sort of clatter against the inner walls. And there is only one occupant currently in the chantry, and it is indeed Magister Demetrius Ronin. He is sitting, there's 4 rows of pews on either side of a short aisle, a big stained glass window depicting Andraste on the pyre, which is a very popular iconography in chantries. And he stares in first befuddlement and then slowly spreading alarm as he realizes who is leading the pack. He stands up and he says, What are you doing here? He says, You, slaves, get him out of this house. I do not want him here, but none of the slaves move. Leander says, Surely, Ronin, You had to know that I would come back eventually. Ronin is confused mostly now because he's like looking at the slave. Like he directly speaks like, Mia, take him out of here. I want him removed from my estate. But Mia doesn't move. So Leander just kind of keeps talking. He says, I wanted to see for myself if you feel any regret for what you've done. I mean, you are here in the chapel, aren't you? Are you asking for the forgiveness of the Maker? Or forgiveness from Andraste? After all, you did torture and kill a lot of your slaves for blood magic, for sexual gratification. So I figured I'd speak to you first, Ronin. Do you feel regret? There's a brief beat of silence, and Ronin lights up his hands with a spell and fires it at Leander. Leander catches it almost effortlessly, like he barely even twitches his fingers, and there's this shimmer of magic that catches the fireball and disintegrates it.
Jesus.
Ronin takes a couple staggering steps back, and he says, How did you... Magic? Leander keeps walking toward him. I'm not tranquil anymore, and you haven't answered my question about regret. As it becomes apparent to Ronin that he is outmatched, he's no longer tranquil, and also he's got a lot of backup. He starts blubbering, like just sobbing. Like he falls penitently to his knees, and he starts wailing about how, yes, he is sorry, and he will change. He'll be kinder to slaves. He's so sorry. He has always lived with the guilt. And by this point, Leander has stopped standing over him, and Magister Ronin grips the edge of his clothes and just says, I'll repent. I will. I'll pray and dedicate my soul to the chantry. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Anybody buying this?
The slaves don't seem to be buying it. Dorian definitely doesn't buy it.
I'm certainly not convinced. And I don't think the Maker would be either.
He says, just tell me what I need to do to make it up to you, to prove that my penance is sincere. And Leander crouches down in front of him and he says, free all your slaves. And Ronin stares at him and he says, but I can't. He says, free all your slaves, Ronin. You've spent most of your life abusing them. If you truly want to show that you are devout and that you are penitent, you should free them immediately, right? And in fact, how about an oath to never buy another slave again? Ronin, do a quick roll for cultural lore for me, Alien.
Okay.
Okay, that's a pretty good roll, unsurprisingly.
Yep.
So, in the Imperium, slaves are, in addition to obviously, like a well-trained slave is like very highly prized just from a monetary perspective. But also in the Imperium, they are considered a status symbol.
Mm.
So telling a magister to free all his slaves and vow to never purchase another slave again is basically like saying, sell your house and live on the street. Because that's pretty much, it's a house worth of wealth, especially for a man who has this many slaves. Like he is asking, Leander is demanding, like, ruin yourself financially and socially. It's a pretty big ask. Ronin is sputtering. He says, that would ruin me. That's damn near a quarter of my entire estate is tied up in my slaves. You can't ask me to. Leander abruptly puts a boot over his throat and knocks him hard to the floor with it. He stands over Magister Ronin with this boot pressed, like, not hard enough to, like, strangle him, but, like, if he puts more pressure on it, he could definitely crush his windpipe. And he says, I had to spend so many years locked up in that bedroom with you, Ronin, so my patience is very thin. Free them now, or I am going to kill you. And suddenly realized with his immediate prospects, he says, Fine, I free all my slaves. And the slaves in the background kind of look at each other and like they had never expected this to happen. And they are suddenly seeing one of their own, right? Seeing an elf who used to be a slave forcing their master to free them all feels like a windfall. The slave behind you yells something that you can't quite understand, and there's a loud crash. Dorian looks behind him and sees that the slave has, like, knocked this extremely expensive bust off of a platform and destroyed it on the ground. Dorian's like, And then he turns back forward, like, oh, that's fine.
A little property damage, okay.
But it doesn't stop there. The slaves start breaking windows. One of them grabs a candelabra, starts lighting a curtain on fire, and he says, I did what you asked me to! Make them stop! Leander sort of crouches down over him, and he says, I didn't hear you make that oath, Ronin, to never own another slave again. He says, they're gonna burn this estate to the ground! And Leander says, is that a refusal? Or, and as he sees some of the fire start to catch from the curtains in the hallway, Ronin starts to thrash under the boot. His countenance suddenly changes. He says, you will regret this, you knife-eared little whore. The magisterium will come down on you. They'll call this a riot and kill every slave you claim to love so dearly.
Sounded like a refusal to me.
So, Elian, this is the point in the game where that little dialogue box comes up and you've got a binary option.
Okay, cool. What are my options?
Does Elian encourage Leander to kill Ronin, or does he encourage him to spare him? And spare is a strong word. He's lost all his slaves and apparently his mansion's about to burn to the ground. But, not kill him.
I feel like if I hadn't known about the 13 thing, I might have chosen to let him chance the fire and his ex-slaves. But Elian's gonna encourage him.
What does he say specifically?
Well, I think the instant that he called him a knife-eared whore, Elian has a dagger out.
I guess there is the secret third option. Does Elian want to kill him? There's always a secret third option in these big binary choices.
I feel like when he said that, Elian just throws a knife at his shoulder, like not to kill, but definitely to wound.
It lands. Well, I guess I should make you roll to hit, but he's not really wearing any armor. He's just wearing robes. So I guess roll to hit DC 12.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more than enough. Leander sees the knife land. Ronin cries out in pain, and there's electricity that reacts anytime a mage is extremely emotional, obviously. Like, sometimes magic happens around them. Leander looks back at you questioningly, and, the secret third option, like, does Elian want to do it? Like, it's a valid option.
He gestures, like, all yours.
Leander, turns and he stares down at Ronin, who is still wailing in agony with that knife in his shoulder, now pooling blood underneath him on the floor. It's a really long time, and like in the background you can hear like that fire is really getting out of control. Like you guys have probably got to leave this building before the whole place burns down.
Nervous about that.
It's like it seems to be spreading away from you, which is good.
Good.
Strictly speaking, that's better than the alternative, but still this building is about to get on super duper fire. Leander says, I've been thinking about this a lot ever since my tranquility was broken, and I really didn't know what it was I would be feeling in this moment. And he says, but I think I figured it out now. It's pity. And then he sets him on fire, and it's a violent fire. Like, it starts at the center of Ronin's chest, and it erupts outward in this ring. And all at once, he is like really burning. Like this isn't just like setting his robes on fire. Like his flesh and his bones are suddenly roasting. He takes a couple steps back and stares down at him. There's a loud crash as a rafter, a couple dozen yards behind you, collapses into the floor.
I think that's our signal to go.
Leander stands there for a while. Like it's not clear if he heard you. He's busy staring. Like Ronin is still screaming. Like, he is literally burning alive.
Elian runs over and grabs him by the arm. We need to go.
He looks kind of dazed. He says, what?
We need to go.
Right. Right. He says, there's an exit through the grove. And he takes you behind. There's this little secret door around a corner, like in a nook in the chapel. And you head out through it, and you exit onto this large, sprawling orange grove. And as soon as you get like a decent distance away from the Ronin estate, there's like it's fully involved now. Like the left half of the building is like,
oh my god,
burning, like really, really burning. And you can hear the sounds of shattering glass and screaming as, you know, like the elves, like understandably, the slaves were pissed. And it occurs to you that he might have been right, Ronin might have been right, because you can hear like loud, like guard whistling, like the whistle from a guard somewhere signaling that there's an emergency happening, and there is a not insignificant chance that this is going to be put down like a riot.
Eesh.
Dorian says, "Oh, this isn't good. This is not good."
Have any ideas?
On how to put down a riot? This isn't my area.
Not mine either.
He says, I guess we do have most of an army now. I don't know if we can't just march them into Mien'harel, but maybe we can. The Dalish. Maybe we can get the Dalish. They'll trust another elf, right? To get them in and maybe, like, help them into respite? Talk them down a little bit?
Maybe. Do we have time for that?
They're gonna have to get here pretty fast, he agrees. And then, like, a window explodes as the fire heats the glass so much that it just completely shatters. He says, okay, maybe we should head back to the Pavis estate and find out where the Dalish are so we can, like, start this, hopefully,
good plan.
Soon.
Yep.
You turn back with the expressed desire to go away. And Leander is on his knees.
Oh dear.
He is sort of hunched over himself.
Oh dear, shock. Not good.
These ugly, really, like, broken, racking sobs. Like, he didn't know how he was going to feel about this, but it's not great. There's a lot of stuff that happened to him here, and seeing it burning is a catharsis, but
yeah,
it's not going to take away the memory.
Elian crouches down next to him.
Dorian says, I'm going to go back. We need to get someone here as soon as possible.
I know.
He says, bring him back when you're done. And he grabs Talgan and takes off running.
Leander.
He doesn't answer. He's sobbing.
Elian just puts his arms around Leander and holds him.
As you pull him into you, he says, this is the last place I saw her.
Oh God. I'm so sorry.
I never even had time. He made me tranquil so soon after he killed her.
I'm so sorry, Leander.
There's another extremely loud crash as the roof caves in.
I'm so sorry. But we can't stay here.
It's not entirely clear if he's, like, even hearing you. It's, he doesn't stand up.
I figure the roof collapsing and, like, the guard whistles is more than enough for Elian to just whisper, I'm sorry, and pick him up.
What ends up happening, and none of you are there for it, it's mostly Dorian who sneaks is probably the best word for it, the Dalish, into Mien'harel and tells them, like, there's a bunch of slaves and, like, we really need to get them to stop rioting or the guards are going to kill them. Like, it doesn't take, like, if they're not going to spare the lives of slaves, right? Like, if they think it's a violent rebellion, they're going to put them down. And what ends up happening is the Dalish do their best, but it takes them a while to get there because they didn't want to camp too close to Mien'harel. And by the time that they are able to get there, it has devolved into, like, a real slave riot.
Oh,
like,
God.
It's not just the Ronin estate. A couple of, like, passing slaves saw what was happening there, and it just caught on like wildfire. There is a very, very real riot that is happening in Mien'harel, and the Dalish do their best. They talk some of them down. They get them back to the Pavis estate and into respite. But a lot of people die. Some of them slaves, some of them magisters, some random passing citizens. Leander, for his part, isn't really equipped to deal with the specifics of it. He spends probably the next half day just crying. Just really processing everything that happened to him in that house, even as, by this point, it has burned down. Spray.
Yes.
You make it back to Kirkwall. When you arrive, it's pretty late, so you head straight to bed. It's been 2-ish days on the road. Are you tired, or is sleep eluding you?
I think I can't sleep. I think I'm probably, like... I want to move. I don't want to sit still, because if I sit still, I have to think about things, and I don't like that.
Well, let's say you give it at least like a college try, which for, Sabre is like 20 minutes maybe.
Sure, yeah.
And
sits in bed, turning around every 5 seconds.
Toward the end of that 20-minute window where you're deciding, I need to just go outside and like run laps around Kirkwall or some shit like that.
Yes, exactly.
You hear a knock on your door.
I sort of reluctantly get out of bed. Who is it?
It's me. It's Lannon. He's like, he also sleeps here, so like he doesn't really need to knock on the door. I guess he's being like a conscientious boyfriend.
I don't think you need to knock on the door, Lannon. You live here too.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it feels. I'm just gonna open the door, and then he opens the door. He has a big old armful of stuff. Like he has a big bag thrown over his shoulder, and he's also managing to sort of half balance a plate with 2 steaming mugs of tea on it. He says, I brought you some calm down juice.
That's pretty sweet.
I also brought you some other stuff. I'll talk about it later. And he sets the tray down on the end of the bed. The tea is still hot, piping hot. And he sits down on the end of the bed. He says, we haven't really talked much since we left Tanterville.
I'm like eyeing it like wearily, like, did he put something in it?
Yes, your boyfriend dosed you.
I like, I'm gonna like take off my shirt and begin to put on like clothes for like going outside and be like, actually, I was just leaving.
He says, oh, okay.
It just seems like a good night for a run, right?
It's 3
really,
o'clock in the morning
and
Kirkwall is infested with like bandits?
Well, good night for a run and some bandit hunting. That sounds like a good way to end the evening. Where's my spear? I'm like looking around.
He says, Sabre, can you please sit?
I can't. If I sit, Lannon, I have to think about it, and I don't want to think about it. So where is my spear? I know I put it around here somewhere. I'm like throwing pillows like at the wall.
He says, it's gonna happen. Like everything that's going on in your head, it's going to come to a boiling point.
Not if I just keep moving, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, Lannon. It's what I've done in the past. If I just keep running.
Uriel, it hasn't worked in the past.
That's... I sit down on the bed, like, loudly.
He hands you a cup of tea.
I look at it suspiciously, and then I drink out of it.
He says, we don't have to unpack all of it if you don't want to, but you've gotta confront it, preferably before, you run through Lowtown, making every bandit in the city aware of your presence.
I don't know, that sounds like a great afternoon.
There are literally thousands of them.
You could come with me. It's a good date.
He says, look, the city doesn't have a great history with apostates.
Yeah.
I like to look at him and I'm like, at some point, we are going to move somewhere that's not a city where I can go running around at 3 a.m. with no problem.
He says, maybe Clan Sulanan.
Yeah. I miss that kid, Don't ever tell her I said that.
Naya, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she's pretty cute.
She has big eyes.
And it seems like the keeper really liked her. I saw her off before we left the Arlefen. She was very excited to ride a holla. Apparently that's something that she really wanted to do. She's way too small to ride a holla. Like, she, like holla are quite small, but, like, she's, like, young. She's too young. Holla are quite temperamental, and you really gotta train before you can ride a holla.
It seemed like a good place to call home.
Yeah.
I never really thought about calling another place home again, but...
He says you can start thinking about that now,
I've always been running from something, Lannon. Or towards something, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
What do you want to do?
Kill a bandit!
Listen, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Why don't you, hold on to that feeling and kill a slaver tomorrow or something, okay?
Suppose I can wait until tomorrow.
I'm sure things are fine back in Mien'harel. I'm sure.
Oh no!
It's totally fine.
It's fine. There's nothing happening. It's okay. We were only gone for a couple days.
What could have possibly gone wrong?
I think I just I'm gonna sit quietly there for a second, drinking tea, and then I look at him and I say, actually I don't look at him, I'm looking down at the ground. I think I'm a coward.
What makes you say that?
I have waited for years to confront Mien'harel, and then I get there and I can't do it, and I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can do anything anymore, Lannon. If I can't even kill her, how am I supposed to kill demons in the Blight?
He says, you've already been killing a lot of demons and a lot of slavers. The problem isn't cowardice, Mien'harel. I think you've mistaken inaction for cowardice. You didn't kill her, and it wasn't because you were afraid. If it were fear, you never would have gone inside her house.
But I couldn't do it. I looked her in the eye, Lannon, and I wanted to. I wanted to kill her, and I just couldn't bring myself to. Isn't that the mark of a coward? This thing I have dreamed about for 10 years of my life, and I get to the moment and I fail.
That's not the mark of cowardice. That's the mark of compassion. It's a good thing.
I think I'd found my spear at some point, and I'm just, gripping it really, really tightly in my hands.
Don't you remember the Virtanidal? The true mark of a warrior is knowing when not to lay the killing blow. And that is a quote from the Virtanidal. The Virtanidal is called it's the way of the hunt in Elven. It's something that all the elves have to learn before they go out on the hunt. And it's like this big, long, admittedly kind of boring set of rules and ideals that Dalish warriors should aspire to. And he is quoting it directly.
I look up at him kind of ruefully. I thought you tried to forget all of that.
That's like a bad penny, I guess. He says, hey, do you want to take your mind off it a little bit? He pulls the bag into his lap that he'd had over his shoulder.
Yes, please. Is that something I can kill?
No, but it does involve sharp things.
I'm interested.
He pulls out a wooden set full of needles and inks, and you recognize them right away. This is a keeper's Valaslin set. It's what keepers use to mark someone with Valaslin.
Oh shit!
He says, "I think I've finalized the rune, the design for it. I mean the
Oh my god!
I can't really do it on myself because some of it's on my back. And also, I'm traditionally you're not supposed to do it on yourself. And I was just wondering maybe I could show you how to draw it if you want to, and I could. It shouldn't take too long. It's intricate, but it's not very big. And if
yes.
Oh, who cares? I could not have continued that question for much longer.
You just gonna keep babbling for 20 minutes. No, yes, absolutely. Oh my god, Lannon, this is amazing.
He says, really? Because it kind of feels like an undo button for me.
Does it? It feels like a rebirth to me.
Well, I guess I'll try to look at it that way then. And he pulls out the first set of ink. So when you got your Valaslin, and when every Dalish elf gets their Valaslin, it usually happens around the onset of puberty. It's supposed to be like a big demarcation into adulthood. And one of the things that is integral in the process is the keeper will stop at any time if the elf flinches or cries or shows any sign of pain. It's one of the weirder traditions at IMHO.
So you have to be super stoic. You have to
be stoic. It helps. They teach you meditative practices for controlling reaction to pains. But throughout the whole process, well, for the first part of the process, he's drawing on himself as best he can to show you where to mark and everything. But when you finally get the ink and the needles, and these are sacred relics, all the inks and the needles that the keepers use are considered sacred artifacts of the Dalish. As soon as you actually start, he is completely calm, and it's actually kind of an intense emotional process. It takes a long time because it's a pretty substantial rune. It takes a couple hours, and by the time that you're finally done, it is early pre-dawn, and Lannon kind of lifts one arm and flexes it, and then he lifts his other arm, and a pale blue hand extends from the stump, fueled completely by magic. And he flexes the fingers a little bit, and he says, wow.
How's it feel?
He pokes you in the forehead.
Ow!
It doesn't feel like a finger. It feels like, You don't really know how to explain it. Like, it feels solid, but not flesh-like. It's kind of cool, almost like electric to the touch.
Interesting. It goes up all the way up his arm?
It's just the elbow.
The elbow.
Because that's where the arm was cut off, the elbow.
I think I, like, take his hand just to see what that feels like.
It feels weird. Not like unpleasant, very... Like that one time Lannon did that lightning thing in the Fade, it feels like that a little bit.
Interesting. I just, like, am staring at it and I'm like, can you feel it?
He says, kind of. It's not really physical sensation, it's more like the impression of physical sensation. And he does stuff like he picks up a book and it seems to work, like it functions like a normal hand. And he says, I really appreciate this. And he'd been like holding on to like, because you're not supposed to react when you're receiving your Velos. You're supposed to like hold on to the pain and like keep it inside. But as soon as it's over, he's kind of an emotional mess because it feels like, like you said, it feels like a rebirth. I really appreciate that you did this for me. Thank you.
I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Hey friends, Tessa here. If you're desperate to hear the next episode, chances are good that you can by joining our Discord server. We post links to all episodes and pre-release, and you can even chat with us and listen live as we record. Join us by going to bit.ly/CFCDiscord. For more information on the show, character biographies, and links to social media, head to our website, critfail.club or critfailclub.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Crit Fail Club does not advertise at all, so if you like what you hear, tell a friend who might also like it, make a post on social media about it, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Full episodes are available on our YouTube channel, bit.ly/CFC channel, or wherever you get your podcasts.